I've another little word if for you. This one's taken from Romans 2:25 to 27. Paul's telling the Roman believers that they don't need to be circumcised. It's a difficult scripture to understand, but I'll explain it. For circumcision verily profits if you keep the law. But if you are a breaker of the law, your circumcision is made uncircumcision. In other words, it counts for nothing. Therefore, if the uncircumcision, the Gentiles, that means, keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? So if a Gentile does the things that the law requires, then it's counted for circumcision. And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfil the law, judge you, who by the letter and circumcision transgress the law? So a man who's circumcised, a Jew who's circumcised but doesn't keep the law, is judged by a Gentile who keeps the righteousness of the law without circumcision. Let me go back. If a Gentile under the Old Covenant wanted to be part of Israel, the first thing he had to do, if he was a man, was to be circumcised and then learn the law of Moses and obviously keep it. Well, many believers under the New Covenant think they have to keep the ordinances of the Old Covenant. In other words, they can't eat unclean meat. They've got to keep the Sabbath and the feast. But they don't practice circumcision. They're all ordinances. And Paul says the ordinances are done away with in Christ. Let me give you the scriptures to substantiate this. I've got 3 scriptures which clearly show that the ordinances were done away with when Christ was crucified. Ephesians 2:15. Jesus, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make in himself of two one new man, so making peace. The moral law of God, of course, still stands. That will stand till heaven and earth pass. Colossians 2:20. Wherefore, if you are dead with Christ from the rudiments of the world, and Christians claim they are, why, as though living in the world, are you subject to ordinances? You're free, you're under grace, not under the law. So it's a contradiction to miss the old and new covenants. And Colossians 2:14, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. The law of Moses was strange to the Gentiles. It wasn't given to us, it was given to Israel, not the Gentiles. So we don't need to know the ordinances. The moral law of God still stands, contained in the 10 Commandments, because every man has a moral conscience. Even an atheist has the moral conscience of God, the 10 Commandments. Atheists know it's wrong to kill. They know it's wrong to covet, to commit adultery. It's every man living has the law of God written on their hearts. They just ignore it. But the ordinances were given to Israel, and the Gentiles don't have to keep it. So if you're trying to keep the ordinances of Moses' law, you're under the Old Covenant. If you're a man, you certainly need to be circumcised, and you become the wife of God. You're part of Israel in the flesh. If you're under the new covenant, you don't need to be circumcised or keep any of the ordinances, the Sabbaths, the holy days, the feasts. You can eat pork. You're free from all the ordinances. Let me say again, the moral law contained in the 10 Commandments still stands until heaven and earth pass. That's what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount. Well, I hope I've challenged you. I hope I've cleared things up. Have a wonderful day. I'm a busy man. I'm going now. See you for the next vlog.